Hi, Olia. How are you? She's in there. She's in the chat.
Hello everyone, I make it the top of the hour, so I feel as though we should get going. We're still going to have some other attendees coming through, I'm sure, but it's nice to see everybody here today. And welcome to the fifth of our Forgotten Functions series. Today's session is all about using programs in Nurture Streams and spring cleaning your Marketo instance, which in its own right is well, both of those topics are pretty big. Luckily, we've got big brains to talk about them. So we have Veronica, who's going to be handling the programs in Nurtures. And then we've got Mina with his, I wanted to find a picture of Mina with a mop and some form of feather duster, but sort of ran out of time because he'll be talking about spring cleaning stuff. But still, maybe that's for the recording. You know who we are, so I'm not going to spend too long doing this. We're still very proud of the fact that we're at now 298 actually instances of Marketo. So welcome to. Not sure if we've gotten anyone here from one of our most recent clients down in Melbourne, but welcome. Things are changing a wee bit. I'm looking at the trends. I won't bore you with this too much. Perhaps I will in subsequent ones. But we're actually getting more people attending these sessions who have got more experience in Marketo. So it's curious as to exactly what we're teaching them, but it does describe, or it perhaps indicates that the depth of the experience that we have here. Someone like Veronica, for example, is it 10 years? Don't know. Give us a clue. Number of years of experience.
Coming up on somewhere between 12 and 13.
Right, there we go. So huge amounts of experience. Talking of which, making the most of this session. And V was amused when I took this screen grab a bit earlier on. Please use the Q&A. The more questions you ask, and I will interrupt the speakers as they're speaking, so I'm going to be moderating that stuff. I feel useful when I do things like that. It would be fabulous if you can start asking some of those questions. So please take your time to do that. I think you know why we're doing these Forgotten Functions series. We kind of do them because we just do this stuff day in, day out. And perhaps some of the people who are here, that they're not full-time Marketo, or they're just forgotten about some of these things. And some of the commentary we've received from previous sessions about design, templates, velocity scripting, even the Marketo calendar, which was quite fascinating. So if you've got anything that you want us to cover, not that we're running out of ideas, by the way, but if you do have anything that you want to cover, we'll be sending something out over the next couple of weeks that just gives you an opportunity to say, yes, I would like to know about this and this and this. So let us know, and I'm absolutely sure we'll be able to find somebody who can help. At which point, I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and invite you to take over, V. So what we're going to talk about is programs in Nurture Streams.
Good morning, everybody. Graham, you have to let me share.
Do I now? I am going to make you host. How's that?
Great. Excellent. So hopefully you can now see my screen. We're going to have a bit of a chat about using programs in Nurture Streams. So I'm not going to go too much into sort of the basics of Nurture and skip straight out into the topic at hand. So as many of you know, when you are building out your Nurture Streams, you are able to choose two different you're able to choose 2 different types of casts, essentially. So you can choose to use email or you can use programs. So we're going to focus. So the vast majority of people who use Nurture today, unless you use it a lot, have a tendency just to use email. So we're going to walk through a little bit about more specifics around how and why to use programs in Nurture Streams. And this is the why. So why should you use a program in a Nurture Stream instead of an email? Isn't it just more complicated? Isn't there just more work? Yes, it is a tiny bit more complicated, but it's the only way that you can control who actually receives a cast if you need to check against eligibility criteria each time you're doing a cast. So you could do that in Smart campaigns out, but it's difficult to isolate where people are in the stream. So so if you actually need to check back on some kind of eligibility criteria, so let's just say they're still a customer or they haven't moved on to the next stage in the life cycle, whatever that is, if you need to reach out for that, using a program in the cast will help you to do that. So also, if you need that cast to be more than just a single email blast, if you need to launch follow-up activities based on that cast, if you need to capture success metrics at each individual cast or content level, where there's specific calls to action for each cast in the stream, programs will allow you to measure people's progress or success against calls to action just in that particular cast, as well as measuring it overall in the Nurture Stream. Also allows you to incorporate entire event registrations and programs within a Nurture program, which can be amazingly useful if you want to use an upcoming webinar, an upcoming in-person event one day within a Nurture program. And one of the things I'm really going to focus on today is launching communication types other than email. So if you want to send a social post, add them to a list for a Facebook audience, send an SMS, send an in-app notification, whatever that is, you actually can do that from within the program, because a program is just a program. It's sitting within a cast. It can do everything that a program normally does. So you're limited only by your use case and your imagination here. So so it's really up to you to think through the possibilities. The number one thing to understand about using engagement programs is that we know that each of those steps is called a cast. So each time a piece of content is sent out in a stream, it's called a cast. There are 2 things that can happen when that cast goes out. An email is sent, or a smart campaign inside a program and its smart list is evaluated. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because the number one thing people look at when people get stuck on when they're using programs and engagement streams is if they don't qualify for that program in that cast, does that mean they skip over that program and move to the next cast like they would with an email if they'd already received an email? It's not the case. If just by evaluating that smart campaign, they have been in the cast. So they're not going to get any communication in that particular cast if they haven't met the smart list criteria. They're also not moving on to the next cast. So they just won't get anything for that cast. So it's really important distinction as to how that works. So let's drill down into a specific scenario here. So something to think about here, and I'm going to work with that scenario of using different content types. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a single stream nurture. You don't always have to go into multi-stream if a single stream will do. Single stream nurture where the first cast is a series of 3 emails. Send an email, wait 1 day, check if they clicked it, send a second email, check if they clicked it, 2 days, send a third email. That's the first cast in week 1. In week 2, I'm going to add them to a static list, which would pick them up manually at the moment, but sometime in the future, we'll have an automated process for doing that. But could add them to a static list for AdBridge to be included as a custom audience to Facebook or Google or LinkedIn. And third, in the 3rd week, I'm going to send them an SMS. So these are my 3 casts, 3 different types of communication. So I'm going to drop over to Marketo, and we're going to actually demo how this is done. So inside Marketo, I have my engagement program and everything's pre-built. Now, I want you to get into the habit of actually adding content through this button, because when we move to the new version of Marketo, which is coming imminently, some of you may already have it, there's not going to be any drag and drop from the tree into engagement programs. So you have to get used to doing this add content button. So if you hit add content, choose program. Inside each program is a smart campaign that's been designated to be the one that's called by the stream as part of the cast. And we'll take a little bit of a closer look into that in a second. But I'm going to search for and these are my 3 programs. So my email program, my list program, and my SMS. So I'm going to add my program, and there's only one smart campaign in there, and that adds it to the stream. So if I want to add any more content, I hit the little plus button because the add content button goes away. And again, go there. So very simple to get that going. You go, okay, this is my list one. So I have 2 smart campaigns in here, but I'm going to choose my send campaign and a third. So you'll see this is a very quick process if you've got your programs pre-built. And my SNS one. And going to choose my send campaign again. So what we have here are 3 programs, but they haven't been, much like email content, they haven't yet been activated. We can work with them, but you can't actually launch the stream until we make all of our content active. So within this, I've actually, so you'll see when I chose each of those programs, I had to choose a send campaign. So the send campaign within each program, it doesn't actually have to be called send campaign, obviously, but you'll see here that as soon as it's been added to the program, people might have noticed that that just switched when my browser refreshed. Instead of being unlaunched, I guess, or unscheduled, it now has a little green arrow that says that it's now being used as the send campaign in the Nurture stream. But it's important when you set up these send campaigns, you do not schedule them. You don't set them to run, you don't set them to trigger. You must not schedule them, because the whole point of it is that the cast owns the schedule, not the smart campaign. So as soon as it's chosen, it becomes a send campaign. The other piece that you must remember is that each one must have member of engagement program is true and this program. So that's the minimum filter that you need. If I have this filter, that means everybody who is in this cast will get this. I can do smart list criteria beyond this now to kind of check against another criteria or whatever it is I want to do, but I don't want to do that for this particular example. So I'm just using member of engagement program is true. And within my flow, as part of this cast, I'm sending an email, changing the program status to show that they are part of this program and they've been sent. I am waiting 1 day. I'm sending another email. If they click the link in the first email, send them the second one. Wait 2 days. If they click the link in the second one, send them the third one. You don't have to check for that engagement level. I'm just doing that for this example. But the way this is working is I'm actually sending 3 emails at the cadence that I want to send them as part of a single cast in my engagement program. So what Marketo will do now is it will wait a week until the next cast, and I've set up a secondary campaign here that is all about, again, I'm just listening to see if they're a member of this particular program, and I'm adding them to a static list, and from that static list I can pick them up and push them to a Facebook custom audience, and then again changing the program status within that program so that I know that that's all moving through to my reporting, and I'll show you the reporting in a second. But so the idea behind this is essentially my use case behind all of this is I want to be able to see with this cohort of people coming through this this particular stream, what types of channels are they engaging with? So I have a success point set in each different program. Do they respond to my Facebook ad? then they will become a success in this particular internal nested program. Did they click on an email or engage with the emails in the first program? They'll become a success in that program. In the third one, I'm going to send them an SMS. This could be any kind of success measurement you like. Mostly it'd be, you know, if I clicked the link in the SMS and went to a landing page, I could track that they landed on the landing page. So so it's all about setting a different call to action, different success criteria within each of these programs, but in the end, being able to do an apples to apples comparison with the success and be able to run a report on those calls to action across the different programs within the stream. So if we look at my third one here, again, I've got a smart campaign where I've got my smart list criteria. So in this one, I'm changing their program status and I'm requesting a campaign because, as you know, SMSs can't be sent through batch campaigns, and that's kind of what this initial campaign is considered in Marketo terms. So I do still need to request that secondary campaign to send the webhook. So when I send the SMS, I can go through a webhook, and I can call that webhook as part of this third program. So again, it's all about looking at all of your different channels across the board and being able to incorporate multi-channel engagement within a nurture. Now, I just spotted a question sort of flashing up on the screen.
No, that was just me.
Oh, was it?
Asking people, telling people, hey.
Telling people to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So the last thing I want to show you here, and obviously we have campaigns in this nurture that are doing the normal things for nurture. Leads in, leads paused if they achieve the call to action, leads paused if they are exhausted. All of those smart campaigns still run at the engagement program level. Those don't sit inside the internal programs. They're all sitting above and they're controlling the engagement program as a whole. But one of the things I wanted to show you was if I needed the calls to action here, I've got my 3 internal programs. I've got my channel statuses. So did they achieve the call to action? And I'm able to look at that as a single program performance report to show the engagement per asset across that engagement program. So it's a really neat way of making sure that you can understand what's going on at every single cast and being able to report on results at the cast level.
I think this is one of the things that Veronica and I were discussing yesterday about some common use cases of this type of program, because whilst it looks complicated, and to an extent it does need a bit of forethought about how you set it up, it's a really, really powerful tool for if you are a vertical manager or if you're helping a vertical or a segment manager who has multiple channels of engagement. So they run an SMS campaign, they may run an event, they may run a webinar or a downloadable ebook content. And the issue with those when you're trying to compare them in a normal report is that they all have different statuses. They don't all track the same way. Their levels and measure of success are very different. For an ebook, it's whether the person downloaded. For an SMS, it could be if they click the link. But at the end of the day, if the segment manager wants to measure up the success of the entire segment over a course of time, this sort of report and this sort of program structure helps do that, because they can share a level of success being achieved CTA, even if that success is very different when you compare these different programs.
Yes, exactly. And you'll see that, I'm mentioning this on my last slide coming through, but you can see here that I've created a new channel for these programs inside the Nurture. It's called Nurture Nested Program. And it's for the default program type, but essentially it does what Mina was just saying, which is standardize the calls to action across the different channels within this Nurture itself, and allows you to build this report out to compare apples with apples, regardless of which channel it was that you went through. But there's so much more you could do here. You can bring in an entire event. If you're a webinar manager and you're running a webinar, you can push that into your Nurture stream. Just don't forget to make sure that you set a time frame for that piece of content. You expire it when the webinar's already gone past. But the sky's the limit here, honestly, in terms of the flexibility with what you can do with Nurture. So so I'll just drop back to my slides here. So the last things to watch out for before I hand over to Mina: program membership at the nested program level guarantees to block someone from receiving the same program twice. So what I mean by that is when you're just using email in a Nurture stream, it's the email asset ID that Marketo goes, this person has received that email before. So if they've already received email 2 in the Nurture, it will send them 1, it will skip over 2, and will send them 3. And so it'll skip over in the cast. You can still do that with programs, and it's program membership. So if somebody's a member of a particular nested program, Marketo will go, okay, they're already a member of this program. I'm going to skip over that for this cast, and I'm going to go to the next program. So that is determined differently depending on if you are using email versus using a program. You can't rely on an email asset inside a program that someone has already seen, blocking them from receiving that program, because it just doesn't work like that. So you can drag in any existing program from anywhere else in Marketo, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's a good chance that cloning that program into the Nurture is actually going to be a better and more manageable structure for you. If it's a complex event, maybe not, but you still need to have that smart campaign wherever it's sitting, either inside the Nurture or somewhere else in Marketo. You still need to have that smart campaign that is not scheduled, that is designed just for the Nurture program to run that particular program. So that send campaign. And any smart campaign within the nested program can be used as that launch send campaign, but you can't have scheduled it already. So that's really important, and we went through that just before. And like we were saying just now, you may want to consider creating a dedicated channel type for tracking success in nested programs to make all of that reporting easier. So I don't know if we've got any questions on the line, but if we don't, I'll be handing across to Mina and stopping my share.
Yeah, there's no questions in there. Oh, hold on, we just got one. So whilst you're handing over to Mina, why don't you have a quick look at that? If your program is built to only send to a specific segment, i.e. region, will anyone that isn't part of that segment just skip the program?
That entirely depends on if you use that. If you use that as the criteria in your smart list, so you can use either member of segmentation or country is or region is or something like that. But if you built that into your smart list, that won't mean they just skip the program. It just means they won't be sent that cast. So so it doesn't actually work like that to just skip over in that particular cast. It just means that if they don't meet the smart list criteria, they're just not getting that cast.
Cool. Yeah. I'll need you, V, to make Mina the host.
Got it.
Hopefully Nick answered your question there. So the next bit, I'll do a bit of singing. Yes, it does. Thank you. Okay, over to you, Mina, better look things.
No worries at all. Everyone can see my screen. You guys are okay?
Yep, all good.
Okay. So it was actually a good idea to put V first because Veronica's content is fairly dense, whereas mine is a little bit lighter. The spring cleaning of Marketo, it's a good time of year to do this, not only because of the time of year that we're in, which is the beginning of spring, but also because post all this COVID stuff and hopefully as things return to normal, you may find that all the frantic work you've been doing in Marketo this year and any previous years has made your instance a bit of a mess. And so here are a few tips to getting things back on track and making your instance a bit neater. So I guess which one looks familiar to you? The one on the right or the one on the left? It comes down to the speed at which MarTech team often works, and having to just get things out the door results in programs and folders being created and stored in places that they often wouldn't have been stored in because we just haven't had enough chance to think about what we're building. An example is in screenshot B, having archived folders in the middle of live folders inside the Nurture. this is our instance. Sorry, Graham, but so I'm I'm naming and shaming. In the Nurture folder, for example, you've got like Nurture Streams showing up, random events that have nothing underneath them. So they were created as tests, but either not developed and not deleted. So they're taking up space. From a functional perspective of Marketo, you guys know that the platform doesn't care. It's not going to slow down, but it will make your lives harder trying to find things when they've not been stored correctly or filed correctly. So a couple of things that I wanted to take you guys through: spring cleaning the notifications bar. This is often an area that is missed by most people who use Marketo because it's not a very loud area, and it's at the top of your screen. When you log into Marketo, there'll be a number of notifications that can show up. We're exploring 3 of them today very quickly. You've got exhaustive content. This is a really good indicator of whether any of your engagement stream members have been exhausted. And it's a good chance for you to go back to the marketing manager or to the segment managers who you deal with and ask them, well, what are the next steps for these customers who have been exhausted? Because they just decay and nothing happens to them after that. It's a good chance to debrief the segment manager about where these customers are up to and whether or not they've been engaged with the content. The second one is a really good litmus test about the health of your CRM integration. So CRM sync errors, be it Salesforce or Dynamics, doesn't matter which one it is. They show whether there are any rules that have been set up by your Salesforce or Dynamics admin that have accidentally broken or shifted the rule set of what Marketo can and cannot synchronize between itself and the CRM. So often you will find a validation rule is set up in Salesforce or Dynamics about how a telephone number should be stored, and all of a sudden Marketo tries to synchronize a new record across, discovers that the rule is now there, and it fails to synchronize because the CRM rejects it. This is the sort of notification you will get, and it's a good litmus test about the health of that integration. The third one is authentication errors. So if you have external or ad bridge, any form of most integrations, except for webinars, funnily enough, but for most credentials that have integrations, if they've changed or expired, any automations relying on these will produce errors or simply fail. The big note there is that Zoom and most webinar integrations don't throw up an error, so do watch out for your credentials when it comes to Zoom, go to webinar, on24, anything to do with webinar integration. If for whatever reason it's updated at a webinar level, so the webinar account itself gets updated, it's not going to throw an error inside of Marketo. You will sadly discover it when you come to do the synchronization.
That sounds like the voice of experience.
Yeah, yeah. It will throw up a registration error program status within the webinar itself. That's the only place you can catch it.
Yeah, but it won't show up inside of the notification. The good thing is you can subscribe to certain types of notifications. So if you're the Marketo admin, it might be a good idea to subscribe to the CRM-based ones, especially because most often your counterpart in the business is the CRM admin, and you two should be relatively well synchronized. Any questions on that one? All good? The next one is users, roles, and access. I have blacked out or anonymized this instance. There are 2 ways traditionally that Marketo users have closed off access to their users inside of the instance. Some of them have taken the older approach, which is to create a role called no access. There is a reason why this is done. It's so that it is because if you delete someone from your instance, it takes with it the admin and audit trail of what that person has done in the past. So ideally, you don't want to do that in case you need to review what the series of events was when it came to changing a campaign or changing a program. So resist the urge to delete users, but instead you should expire their access. And that can be done by double-clicking their name inside of your users panel and expiring their access to today or whatever the day is. It can always be done in the future. It can't be done in the past. So if there are people who have access to your Marketo who you don't need access for anymore, simply expire their access today. And then in 6 to 12 months, or whenever you guys choose to do so, you can then permanently delete them, having known that there isn't anything you want to audit after they've left. Also, it's a good chance for you to review your roles. So very often when Marketo is first installed in a business, certain roles are created. So a marketing role, an analytics role, a database role, a standard user role. And for the most part, because of the way that Marketo is when it gets first installed, the team may still be quite immature, but as time goes on, that maturity grows and the needs of each user grows with it. But it may mean that new roles have been created and old ones have not been retired. It's a good chance to review the roles, see what the permissions are, what can a standard user see, should they be able to see your database? If their role is simply to execute a campaign or deploy an email, maybe they don't need to be able to access the database and download reports and that sort of thing. So have a look at that as well.
Another thing to think about there is when Marketo releases new features that are limited by different roles and permissions, an admin will automatically get them, but lower roles will not. So it's a good idea to sort of keep your eye out for new features that have been released by Marketo, because sometimes your marketing users or your lower level roles will not have been exposed to those features. So it's a good time to review that.
Yeah, exactly, because there's no auto cascade of that. It has to be done manually by the admin.
Yeah.
The next thing is, and I know this might irk some people because it can be an area of contention. Channels and tags is one of my favorite things in Marketo. It's often underdeveloped when it gets first generated in the instance because the processes of marketing have not yet been defined clearly. And then unfortunately it goes from being underdeveloped to very quickly over-engineered with too many statuses available in a single channel. So this is a screenshot of one of my current customers. I hopefully have anonymized everything about them. Yeah, I have. And one of the key things that you'll see here is the channel that we're looking at here is to do with mail and email. Now, it sort of doesn't make sense to be tracking whether someone was bounced, blocked, or delivered an email as a status, because you'll know based on an email performance report. It's not vital for the marketing team to log a status. Neither is sales all that interested to log a status about someone who is bounced, delivered, or blocked in an email. It's probably more important for them to know who is sent it and who has opened it and who has clicked, because these are action items. But for those that have not done anything, it's a waste of the statuses, and it also complicates your builds as you move on with that program, because in order to make any use of these statuses, you then have to create smart campaigns that do the logging on your behalf. They have to log that someone bounced. They have to log that someone delivered. But then when you ask yourself, so what? There isn't a lot to answer for there. So it's a good idea to review this. Remember, do not delete them. You can hide them or simply stop using them. You can also rename them. Reorder their numbers. But don't do anything brash. Review them alongside your marketing managers, review them alongside your sales managers to see what is useful for your business moving forward. Be brave, do question the channels and tags, because they are often set up and then forgotten. Next thing is naming conventions. Another one of my favorites is, as you guys know, there are 4 primary types of programs inside of Marketo. You've got your default, your engagement, event, and email. Some customers are very good with naming conventions. Others have started with a naming convention and as different managers have held Marketo, they come in with their own flavor. Understandably, it's hard to do that if you are not the manager. It's difficult for you to then retroactively change things, but the best you can do, if you do have the authority to do so, is move forward with, from the next quarter, from the next month, with a new naming convention to help you find your programs faster. And one of the ones that we advocate is, if you've noticed, whenever you click on any of your programs, be they email, event, engagement, or default, you'll notice that the URL ends with marketo.com/#. That's shared across the 4 types. But then you've got 2 or 3 digits, letters, so EBPs in email, MEs, event, etc., etc. The key thing here is that there's always a 4-digit number that turns up after the type of program that you're clicking on. The beauty of these numbers is they are non-repeatable, they are unique, they never turn up again, even if the program is deleted or archived. And they make searching for a program super fast when you're searching for something in the top search bar. So if you type the number 1323 and your program actually has that in its name, it's much faster than seeking out Marketo-unlocked, because I may not think of Marketo Unlocked as having a dash between it, but Veronica might. All of a sudden, I'm searching for one without the dash, and I can't find it in inverted commas. But if we're both using the number 1323, which is a unique number for that program, there's no risk of us not finding it. So this is an example of a naming convention that we would advocate. So the type of program you're dealing with, so an event, then the date in long code, so starting with the year, then the month, then the day, because this is quite useful if you're running a series of things that are all named the same. So let's say like a welcome webinar, that you do need to differentiate between the dates that they ran on. And then that central piece of information there, that 1500, that represents the 4-digit code that would show up the moment you create the program. Then you can follow that up with a friendly name, just in case someone likes to search for things with a, like a friendly English name. Any questions? All good?
All good.
Great. And the last thing is Spring Cleaning using as treasure box. Now, this is one of those things that may have been shown to you when you first got a login for Marketo. It wafts in and out of popularity, but it's a good little tool set. Down the very bottom, when you're in the admin, in Treasure Chest, there are 2 of these features that have been developed by Marketo developers, and they're really, really useful, especially these 2. Campaign Inspector, when you enable it, it gives you the ability to see all of your campaigns, being smart campaigns, which ones are turned on, which ones are turned off, which ones are scheduled to run, so upcoming, and which ones have run. Without this being switched on, the tab itself disappears from the front end of your Marketo. It's really easy to turn on. You just go to Treasure Chest and hit Edit Enable. You then will have to either log out and log back in, or simply refresh your browser. And you'll find that in the front of marketing activities, there will be a tab called Campaign Inspector. And the second thing is collapse folders. I love this one because I don't like logging into Marketo and seeing a barrage of folders turn up on the left-hand panel. When you enable collapse folders, it means whenever you log in to an instance of Marketo, all the folders will be collapsed automatically, and then you can go and search for things as needed, rather than finding like a giant list of folders in front of you. And that's possibly my top 5 for cleaning Marketo.
Cool, thanks Mina. We do actually have a question.
Cool.
It's one of your clients actually, but V, feel free to leap in. So it's regarding Marketo fields. We've got some old fields that we no longer use, and we'd like to either delete them or rename them at least. Some of these are still part of our archived Marketo programs. How should we proceed, basically?
So with the ones that are currently in use, that is going to require a manual decoupling. It's relatively simple enough to just go find them, and we remove the reference to those fields inside those programs. Deletion, unfortunately, cannot be done by the average user or anyone with access to Marketo as a user. it does have to be done by Marketo support. But it's a very simple process. You export those field names into an Excel sheet, and you raise a support ticket, and then within, I think, 2 to 3 business days, the local team will have those deleted for you and they will disappear. The thing to remember though is it depends on whether those fields came from Salesforce or not. If they are Salesforce-based fields, then they cannot be removed because they are contingent on the Salesforce sync. However, if they're Marketo-only fields, then you can ask for support to remove them.
Bit of a caveat on that. If you have removed those Salesforce fields from the sync and it's no longer showing a CRM mapping, you can delete those fields.
Cool.
But
yeah.
only after you've removed them from the sync. I've got unfortunately, Olya, if we're being completely honest with you here, there's no shortcut to this. This is one of the things that that plagues Marketo people all the time during this process. If a field is used, it can't be deleted or hidden, and fields that are used in archived Marketo programs are the worst. There's unfortunately no real way around doing the manual hunt down through those programs and trying to find them and decouple them from the programs. I wish there was.
In the absence of any other questions, it's I'll tell an anecdote, shall I? So many moons ago, would have been 8 years or so ago now, this business, as it was then, Resolution Marketing, had a Marketo instance, of course, and we were playing with it, and a lot of what we were doing was demonstrations. Very large pharmaceuticals company we were doing a demo for, and it was a pilot system, so we needed to create a whole heap of fields and what have you, including, in our infinite wisdom, we didn't know this at the time, that it's hard to actually delete these things. We created a whole bunch of fields called Viagra 1, Viagra 2, Viagra 3, Viagra 4, Viagra 5, but there was hundreds of them, right? And then it came time to think, okay, we need to tidy up after that demo. Took a bit of explaining to Marketo support, that one.
Was it a hard topic to discuss?
God.
You didn't have to go there, dude. I thought I was taking it low enough as it was.
Oh, wow. We're taking the high road. I'm glad that was recorded. I would just like to say that the only woman on the call took the high road.
Yeah, I apologise. Look, in the absence of any other questions, I think we'll give people 4 minutes back. Have you guys got anything to say? Veronica? Mina?
I just want to thank everyone for coming today. That was it was definitely a topic that was on front of mind for me, and it's hard to make time for it because I know Marketo users are always busy, and it's not top of priority ever to be cleaning, but it's a good time to do it. Now is better than tomorrow.
I mean, and in terms of the program use, I would just stress
You've gone a wee bit quiet there, V. I'm not sure I can hear you. With that, I think that was just a thumbs up. Yeah, I don't know what happened to your microphone there, but it's gone. So I'll wrap it up by saying thank you everybody for attending. As I say, in the next few days we'll send out something that just perhaps gives us a bit of feedback about these sessions. So thank you everybody for turning up, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye guys. Have you taken the screen back?
Yeah, I think I have.
I can make you the host, I think.
No, I already am. I already am the host. So I was just waiting for everyone to be clear. But I'll just shut now.
There's the hand coming up. Hang on, wait.
Do the
hand.
And for all.
What's with the hand?
I don't know.
Renee
Is there a hand?
Yeah, Renee has a hand up. Are you there, Renee? Oh, will the recording be shared? Yes.
Yes. Yes, it will. We're normally pretty good at that.
Yeah.
So, no problem.
No worries. Catch you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.